Welcome to today's lesson. Today we're going to emphasize strongly on vocab that's going to help you in your triangle unit. I'm going to ask that you watch the video, and as you're watching, take notes with our guided notes that you picked up in class. It's going to help you a lot get organized and understand the different ways we classify triangles. Just so you know, there are two different ways we can classify triangles, one being their angles. We're going to explore that first today, and the second is by classifying by sides. Of course, both we're going to take a look at. But we're going to start here today with classifying triangles by their interior angles. There's three different outcomes and ways that we can classify these triangles. The first is acute. If you take a look at the angles inside of an acute triangle, you're going to notice that they're all less than 90 degrees. They're all acute angles. So when we have an acute triangle, all angles are less than 90 degrees. If you have a situation like that, then we know it's an acute triangle and we can classify it. Okay. Our second case, a little bit more common, is a right triangle. Of course, a right triangle refers to the right angle that exists within that triangle. So if one angle is 90 degrees, we know that we have a right triangle. One angle must be 90 degrees. Okay, it's pretty self-explanatory. If you know the definitions of these angles, you'll be pretty good with the triangle classification. The last is the obtuse triangle. Notice that in the obtuse triangle, we have one obtuse angle. So whenever we have a situation like that, we can classify our triangle as obtuse. So to have an obtuse triangle, at least one, to have an obtuse triangle, one angle must be obtuse. Okay, so these are the three different ways you can classify a triangle by its angles. Now let's take a look at how we can classify a triangle based on its side lengths. Just like in our angles case, we have three possible outcomes yet again. If we have no congruent sides, so that means all these side lengths have to be different lengths. In this case, they are 3, 5, and 7. We have what's called a scalene triangle. If two pairs of sides are congruent, we have what's called an isosceles triangle. You're going to see isosceles triangle theorem in a couple of units from now. So an isosceles triangle shows that two sides are congruent to each other, just two. And remember, we learned how to mark congruency in our previous unit. So if these two sides are both 5, we mark them the following way. If all sides are congruent, we have our final case on how to classify a triangle by its sides, and we call it an equilateral triangle. Equilateral triangle. And what an equilateral triangle tells us is that all three sides are the same length, and by default, all three interior angles are the same size and measure, which means sometimes it is rare, but you could hear the phrase equiangular. If we're talking about an equiangular triangle, well, we're really talking about an equilateral triangle. So they are synonyms to each other in that capacity. That's as far as we're going to take it for vocab today. You're going to want to be really familiar, perhaps make some flashcards, and we'll take a look at how we're going to use them tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.